During the last couple of years, we have done a lot of security assessments of Office 365 and Entra ID environments. And we see some increasing adoption of MFA and conditional access policies and other hardening measures, which is good. But what admins mostly miss is some kind of detection capability. But the thing is that Microsoft already provides us with such a functionality. It's called Microsoft Entra ID Protection. It's a functionality which tells us if Microsoft thinks that some of our user accounts has been compromised. And it provides us with the reason why it thinks so and as well with evidence. And the good thing is that such a functionality is included in every Entra ID tenant, even in those with free license. As well, it's a functionality with low maintenance. You will receive just one alert per week or maybe per month. And as well, it has very low false positive ratio, at least by our experience. So I was wondering, why so that the adoption of such a technology is not higher? And you can see on a screenshot that during our audits, we see a lot of companies having dozens of users being detected as compromised for months and no one doing anything with it. So I was thinking maybe it's an awareness issue. And as I haven't seen many of videos explaining how this functionality works and how you should work with those outputs, I decided to make my own and share with you our experience and our knowledge. So here we go. I believe it's much more practical to be learning on a real case. So let's create ourselves an incident which we will be investigating later. So as we are MSP company, it's quite easy for us to find real phishing email. So I took one phishing email from customer's environment. And if we will play a victim, we will click on the phishing email. Browser opens, and we will be presented with an Office 365 login page. The way how we can say for sure if we are on a legit page or the phishing page is the URL. The legit address is login.microsoftonline.com. So this one is not legit. And as well, what's weird is that CAPTCHA presented to us. So let's play a regular user. We will click on the CAPTCHA and other some redirects, and we will land on a page which asks us for our password. And now it looks like a real Office 365 login page because it contains the company branding as well, but still through the URL, we see that it's a phishing page. So let's continue and provide the attackers with our password. And the MFA will be required. It's a push notification to the Microsoft Authenticator. And because we are a regular victim, we will just provide it. And then we are redirected to a real Microsoft Office 365 login page. Look, now the attackers, they already has access to the victim Office 365. They have the victim's password and a working session. The page where we just ended like a victim, it's their decision to forward or redirect us there. And now maybe the victim will be suspicious and it will contact the administrator with, look, I have clicked maybe on an email I shouldn't click. Or maybe the victim will just think, okay, it was legit, maybe something hasn't worked, I will close the browser and will continue our work. But for the demo purposes, let's go on a web page which will provide us with the IP address of the victim. It will be used for the investigation for us, for the admins, like just to be sure and to be the demonstration more clear. Okay, so now we know it. And let's imagine that the next day the admin arrives to work and it will open Entra ID Administrative Center and it will go to the risky users section. And what happens is that already we are popped with some alert. We see that for the Lucas Bennett, there has been some alert that something's wrong is going on. And we see that the user is at risk, but the risk level and details are considered hidden because the license level of this tenant is not enough to provide us with the details. But Microsoft knows all of the details. But don't worry, because the admin interface contains some kind of glitches. So if we will click on the risk history, we will know all the details. So we see that on 15th of October, there's been some incident, some login from anonymous IP address. The user is at risk and the risk level is medium. So it's like Microsoft is quite sure that the user has been compromised. Okay, so what's next? We need more details about the detection. So let's go to the user risk detection and we will see, okay, it's because of the anonymous IP address login, that it was detected in real time and it was detected on some day and time. So the next thing which I do is that I go to the user sign-ins to see like his behavior, how he's signing into Office 365. And we should find out there the sign-in which was marked as suspicious. It's the first one. And we can go through some details about that sign-in. There's more and more information, but what we should check is like what has been the outcome of it. The thing is that there is status is interrupted and sign-in has some sign-in code, but we will go to the application details and we will see that during the sign-in, the correct password for the user has been provided. And then the second factor was required probably, and there is, as a detail, is authentication in progress. So we are not sure if it worked out or if it didn't. Sometimes some of those logs from Microsoft are quite confusing and it requires a little bit more digging or some experience. So we know that the password has been probably compromised. But if the attackers were able to access the user's environment, we are not sure yet. In additional details, we see that like this is a normal behavior and that the MFA has been requested, but we don't know if it has been like successful or not. So we can go with the sign-in error code. And just Google it. And we see that this code means like strong authentication was required, but the user didn't pass it. So that looks like the sign-in hasn't been successful. Look, because it's a demonstration, so you have seen the user or the victim part as well. And we know that the victim has provided attackers with the MFA as well. But the admins, they usually don't know it. They just have some detection and they have to like investigate the story. So what we do, we just don't finish here because, Microsoft makes you some detection, but it doesn't mean that the compromise has started at that date or time. Maybe Microsoft has detected just some subsequent steps. So we have to like look on the user behavior. And you see, and if you are a company like we are from Czech Republic, you would expect that the users that user, if he is based in Czech Republic, would be signing into the Office 365 just from the Czech Republic. But we see that the first login was from Berlin, from Germany, and then there are some sign-ins from the States, which is unexpected for the user. So let's check those sign-ins. But maybe sometimes we need a little bit more information, because Microsoft has more information and we see that the attackers are behaving a little bit different than regular users. So let's show the operating system and browser and session ID from all of those sign-ins. And now we will see something strange. Look, we see that there is multiple browsers with multiple versions being mixed up. From States, it's Chrome 136, then it's 140, and then it's 141, which is strange because a regular user would have just Chrome in some version, and it wouldn't be 3 versions in 1 day span. And another thing is, which we can like correlate, is those session IDs, because session ID is something which connects all those sign-ins connected to one first sign-in. Okay, maybe it's a little bit confusing, but to explain it, if you have single sign-on, it means you can access first application, second application, third application, and you will be signed into all of those applications without asking you for the credentials. Only just the first application will ask you. And it's the same here. User signs into Windows or to Office 365, and then he's using all of those applications connected to Office 365. He's not asked for credentials anymore because he's using single sign-on. He signs just once. And those other sign-ins like inherits the session, the sign-in session. And especially in that case, it's strange that and that sign-in session should stay within one device. So that's why it's strange that in one device you would rotate 3 versions of Chrome in such a short time. And especially with like you wouldn't be using 1.3.6 because it's old version, then you would go to 1.4.0 and then to 1.4.1. You would usually, if you would have outdated Chrome and you would do auto update, you would land on 1.4.1 directly. Okay, so we see there is something bigger going on. And if we will click on some other of those sign-in sessions, we see that the first factor has been satisfied and as well the MFA has been satisfied. So if user has been to Los Angeles, it's very probable, or I'm quite confident that the user has been compromised. But we don't know what kind of first and second factor was used. So what we can do is to filter the sign-ins which are interconnected with that session ID which we know has been compromised. And if we will go to the first event, there will be like the original first and second factor details. So we see that the first factor was the password and the mobile app notification was the second form factor. Okay, so there are 2 things to realize or to know right now. This sign-in session is the real sign-in session through that phishing email. So what we have seen that the victim has done, that the victim has provided attackers with access to its account. So that's it. That's this sign-in session. And another thing is that, look, as before, I told you, now we see that the mobile app notification, which is an MFA, we can see succeeded is false and result is authentication in progress, like at the first sign-in from the anonymous IP address. But still, in overall, it has been succeeded. You know, that's another kind of like weird Microsoft behavior of the logging, and you need to be aware of such things. Yeah, this is it. You know, and that's because those sign-in logs are probably being logged even before the MFA is provided or declined. And to know how to read the logs, you need a little bit more practice and some experience. And now we, with the data, we see that it corresponds to the like the first victim's mistake when it provided attackers with the password and push notification MFA. So we are sure that the user has been compromised. So what we should do now, if we want to evict the attackers from the environment, we should go to user and to review his authentication methods. Because sometimes happens that the attackers, once they are inside the user's environment or user's profile, they will add another MFA method, or maybe they will add some FIDO key or some other authentication method. This time we see there are none, so it's good. And what we will do is that we will reset the user's password. And once the password is reset, we will go to reset all of his sessions, opened or signed in sessions. And let's revoke them. Now the attackers should be evicted from the victim. So if the victim will go onto his computer, probably he will be already greeted with the prompts from OneDrive or Teams saying like, look, your session, there's something wrong with your session and you need to log in again. And if he will log in again with the new temporary password from the reset, he will make the MFA, he will be presented with the form to reset his password. Okay, and once it's done, let's go back to the admin portal. And you see that before, the user has some kind of attribute like it's a risky user. But once we will receive the password and the user will change the password and we will do refresh for this user, we will see it's gone. So the user is not considered risky anymore. And to confirm it, we can go to the risky users and in the filter show all of those users, even those users with a remediated risk. And if we will go to the risk history, we see already that it's remediated. And in the risk history, we see it was remediated because administrator generated a temporary password, which means like he did a password reset. And then user changed his password, which led to remediation as well. So this user is not considered risky anymore because he did remediation, which was a password reset. So back to the slides and to do some review. So if some user is compromised, firstly, we should review the authentication methods if the attacker hasn't added a new MFA or authentication method. Because if they would do, and we would just reset the password, they could sign in as the user with a new FIDO key, which they provisioned to the user. So let's review the authentication methods and remove all the authentication methods which we don't know or the user doesn't know. Then reset the password and revoke the sessions of the user. That's a quick 3 steps how to evict the attackers from the compromised account. And to look on it from like some kind of perspective, the good thing with the cloud solutions and cloud technologies is that they allows us to work from everywhere, and we don't need VPN for that, which was a big help in the COVID times. But as well, it has some drawbacks, and the drawback is that if there's an attacker, he can attack the cloud environment directly without needing the VPN. Okay, so there are some pros and cons with that. And in our environment, we have more than 5,000 identities under our management or monitoring. And even if those environments are quite mature, we still handle a compromised account a week. So to do some review, what's Microsoft Entra ID production? So that's the functionality which we are speaking about. It's free of charge. And the good thing is that who should do it better than Microsoft? Because Microsoft has all the telemetry from all around the world. So for him, it's quite easy to detect what's like suspicious. He knows the C2C addresses, IPs with bad reputations and everything. And he can provide it to everyone. Those detections are divided into 2 parts. Those are detections which are considered, which are connected with the sign-in, and detections connected with the user risk. And then we divide them on the detection type, because some of those detections, they can be detected real time, and some of those can be detected offline because they require some higher compute power or something like that. And as well, there are some premium and non-premium. Non-premium are available to everyone, even with free Entra ID tenant. And those premium are for P2 version. But the thing is that Microsoft will detect everything for every tenant, but only in case if it's a premium and the tenant doesn't have P2, Entra ID P2 version, the detection will be provided as a generic. So the tenants without the P2 license will miss the details about the detections, but they will be alerted that something wrong is going in their tenant. And as well, if you want to know more details about individual detections, you can go to the Microsoft Docs, which are quite verbose about it, and you can read more about it. And then if you are at risk detection in Entra ID portal, you will see all those attributes presented there as well. And the same, it's in the risk history, which it works quite well because, as you have seen, maybe Microsoft has already fixed it, but before, even if you don't have P2, it's leaking you the premium information. So it's quite nice and good to use it to gain more details about the issue you are solving. And as well, you can see that, for example, Microsoft detects something and it's just a low probability of an issue. And then it keeps increasing as Microsoft sees more suspicious behavior or more severe suspicious behavior. So as I've seen several times, it comes with Entra ID free already. Before it was from P1, but some time ago Microsoft did it, made it available to free tenants as well. And then we have some kind of retention, which is 7 or 30 days. So if you want to go to the details for the sign-ins, you have 7 days if you are on free version, or 30 days if you are on P1 or P2. And the good thing is that, for example, once the user is marked risky or considered risky, there is no time limit. He will be considered as a risk user for the rest of his life, or until you will reset the risk or remedy it. And for example, as we are an MSP company, it would be hard for us to go to each tenant every day. So MSP companies can use Lighthouse, Microsoft Office Lighthouse, for that, because it summarizes the information from all of the tenants which we manage. So it's quite easy for us to use it, and it's a very useful tool for us. And I will show you some more findings we have seen in those risky users or risky sign-ins. Sometimes there are some false positives. For example, this is a false positive. You can see that the user has been traveling a lot, or there are sign-ins within a 1 day span, and the user signed in from Germany, Holland, Luxembourg, Sweden. So it's not very probable that he would be traveling so fast, but we found out later that he had a VPN activated on his mobile phone. So that's why he was traveling so fast, or the sign-ins looked like they are coming from many countries at all. So that wasn't a true positive, it was a false positive. It happens sometimes, but still, Entra ID protection is a great functionality. It's much more low maintenance than to have CM. Then you have different one. It's sometimes, if you have seen, even that something has been interrupted, some sign-in, doesn't mean it has been secure, because it can happen that the user's password is compromised and the attackers were not just able to bypass the MFA. But still, to have password compromised, it can be a problem if your VPN has the same credentials for the user, but it lacks MFA, or some information portal, information system is connected to Active Directory or Entra ID sign-ins, and it lacks MFA. Another one, we see here status is failure, but if we will look in the details, we see access has been blocked by conditional access policies because it doesn't allow tokens to be issued. But the thing, for example, here is that it's been failure, but still the user password has been compromised. But it doesn't mean the attack would be stopped, by MFA, for example, it has been stopped because conditional access policies are blocking, for example, sign-ins from some country and the attackers are coming from that country. But if those attackers would be smart enough, they can dial VPN to the same country of the victim origin, and they would be able to sign in with the password, and they would compromise the user and would be able to access all of the data. And for example, here it was interesting stuff as well. We see that in one session ID there has been a change from it started in Prague and it continued in States, and there has been a change as well in the type of device. Before it started at the iPhone and then it continued on some kind of Windows machine. And look, after some digging, we found out that the user was using old iOS version and he had his Office 365 signed in, and probably he accessed some web page which exploited a vulnerability in the iOS and stolen the Office 365 session cookie. So it means mostly to investigate those risky users, risky sign-ins, it's quite easy, but there are some tricky incidents which will require more digging and more knowledge or some experience. So far, we have seen how to investigate the compromise or how to do a triage. Is it a true positive or false positive? But once true positive is confirmed, mostly the management of the victim company are has been there some data leak? And in those times of on-premise environments, it would be very hard for us to tell okay, maybe yes, maybe no, we are not sure. And even if we would see some suspicious traffic, we wouldn't know what kind of data has been leaked. But with Entra ID, it's totally different. It gives us a lot of power to us like defenders, because Office 365 has unified audit logs, which are usually turned on by default, and they contain half a year of logs. And they will allow us to tell to the management what kind of data has been accessed by the attackers. So let's give you some demonstration. So we know that Lucas Bennett's account has been compromised, and as well we know what time has been compromised. So what we do is that we will go to the unified audit logs and we will say, look, we want all the actions the user has done in the time span of being compromised and the time when it was remediated. And we will hit search. Sometimes to search for those events will take hours, sometimes it's just minutes. It depends on the amount of data we are asking on and as well the load of the Office 365. So we see it found out 33 logs. We can click on it and we will be presented with all the actions. It contains information like what has been changed or what configuration change has been done, what has been accessed or SharePoint files, OneDrive files, and even email, individual emails. For example, those attackers, which surprised me, created a mailbox item. So I was curious what was it, because they deleted that email address or mailbox item later on. But so I used the undelete function, but it was just an empty draft. So I don't know what was the reason of trying it. But then there are some logs where we can see mailbox item was accessed. The downside of those preview logs is just that they are logging only IDs of those mail messages. But the thing is that if the management wants to know what kind of data has been accessed by the attackers, the IDs are not useful a lot, because no one knows what kind of data the email contained, who was the sender, who was the recipient, and so on. But don't worry, we can find it as well. But for that, we need to use a different method. This method of doing the investigation in web portal is just for small cases. If you want to do something a little bit advanced, you can export all the events into the Excel, download it, and then import it as an CSV and do a filtering you would want. Okay, so now we can filter depending on the operation. Many times what we want to be looking on is as well if attackers didn't make any changes to mail transport rules, like they would be exfiltrating some emails or forwarding some emails to their email address. And as well, in the Audit data, we see more details about the event, including those mail IDs. But still, if it's a bigger incident and if you are a professional, you would be using PowerShell or something for those investigation. And we can use this Microsoft Extractor suite, which is a very good one because with little of effort, it will download the data or the events and it will sort it. And what's another advantage is that it's faster to do it this PowerShell way than to do it with the WebGUI way. So let's connect to the Exchange Online and Microsoft Graph before. And now we can call the extractor with the correct syntax. So we will say, look, we want to know all the actions of the user, Lucas Bennett, and the time span is between that date and the current date. And the tool will take the rest. It will pull all the data, enrich it, and sort it. So we will have a folder which will contain the sorted data. So over here. So for example, we can go to the file accessed to know what kind of files the attackers has accessed. And we know that in the WebGUI we haven't seen any, and here are some events, but it's because those are not events from the attackers, those are events when I was like preparing the victim to have some data so the attackers could look on it. So we know that the attackers hasn't accessed any data because over here we see just the IP address of the like a real user. But I don't know why they didn't touch the OneDrive or SharePoint at all. Maybe they got suspicious when they opened the mailbox of the user and they haven't found anything of much value of it. But normally we see that the attackers, they are downloading some hundreds of megabytes of data from the SharePoint libraries. And then we can go to the mail items accessed and we will see something similar like before. We will have just the IDs of those email messages. But the good thing is that with even those IDs, we are able to pull out the real emails with the PowerShell. So for example, we will get the IP address of those attackers. And the other thing is we will say, look, gives us all the IDs which has been accessed by this IP address. Here they are. And then we will provide the list of those IDs to another PowerShell script, which will download us the real emails. So we could prepare some report for the management to tell them, look, during the incident, these kind of OneDrive files and SharePoint files has been accessed and those has been downloaded, so they are exfiltrated, and as well the attackers has accessed those emails of that user. And thanks to it, the management is able to say how severe was the leak. Okay, so now what we are looking on is the other PowerShell script, which is programmed by me, which tries to find all the emails by the ID and export us with where are they located, what date has been received or sent, what was their subject, sender, and the recipient. We as well know the body, but it depends on us if we want to include it in the report or not. So I would like to repeat that this kind of auditing and logs is hilarious in comparison to what we had at on-premise environment. Now, by default, with a cloud incident, we are quite able to say what kind of data has been accessed and leaked by the attackers, which we weren't able to do on the on-premise without any special software being installed before. So if you are going through Unified Audit logs after an incident, what you need to be looking, or what I would be looking, if the attackers did some mailbox rules, like rules which would say if the mail comes from someone, then forward it somewhere else or delete it. Then look on what kind of emails has been accessed and what kind of emails has been sent, because sometimes the attackers are using the breached mailbox to do some internal spear phishing or some kind of phishing against the suppliers or the co-working parties of the victim company. And then what kind of files has been accessed, or as well what kind of files has been shared, because the attackers, they can create a link to share a library or some folder, so they could access the library anytime later on. You know that mailers and file sharing are things which they survive the password reset. So I mean, if you detect a account compromise and you will evict the attackers, sometimes it's not enough, because even those attackers are not able to sign in as the user anymore. They can still, for example, receive the emails of the victim because they did some kind of forwarding rule, or they are able to access some SharePoint library because they created an anonymous sharing link. So that's why you need to go to the Unified Audit log and to be looking for what all of those actions the attackers did. Then you need to go to the Power Apps as well, because they can hide there, and to be looking for new devices joined by the victim or devices registered to Entra ID. And as well, all what we are speaking about is it will take hours, but mostly days, to do the investigation properly. But if the user account compromised wasn't just a regular user, but it was some kind of privileged user, it can take weeks, and it's much more severe, and it requires much more time and effort to be solving that incident. And you know what we have seen at the beginning, the Unified Audit logs for very old tenants, the Unified Audit logs were not enabled by default. You need to enable it manually. Then Microsoft started to enable the unified audit logs by default. And right now, I'm not sure. It looks to me like it's changing, but it's quite easy to check it. So please check if you have unified audit logs enabled. So to do some summary, the attacks against cloud identities are like a standard. It's not something potential or hypothetical. It's a real thing. MFA is just a speed bump. It's not kind of technology which would block the attackers. Maybe some attacks it will block, like password spraying or password brute force, but session stealing and those phishings, which works like attacker in the middle or attacker in the browser, it won't stop there. And then there are some other attacks like range leaks, password spray, imposters, phishing, token thefts. There's a lot of it. So we need to take care about our cloud environments the same way like we care about our on-premise environments. And the place where to start is to look into the risky user section of your Entra ID tenant. It should be empty. You shouldn't have any risk users there. And if there are some risk users and some of those detections go behind like 1 week or 1 month, it means no one cares about it. So you should open this topic and you should be checking those risky users regularly and be solving those incidents. So I hope you liked my talk. I hope you learned something new, and it will improve, or it will help you improve security of your Entra ID tenant. If you want to see or know more, you can check some of my other talks from the conferences when I was going deeper into some topics. And as well, you can get in touch with me on LinkedIn or YouTube, or we have some kind of Instagram in Czech language where we are sharing some quick tips or some memes. And yeah, that's it. Thank you very much for your attention. I hope you liked it. Feel free to reach me. And yeah, see you soon. Bye.